And then I'm gonna check on the onions. Hear that? Sizzle, sizzle, pop, pop. Sizzle, sizzle, pop, pop. A little bit of steam. This is one of the best smells in the world. Is the smell of onions cooking, sauteing. It's one of my favorite smells anyway. We'll give it a good stir. Hey, what's up everybody? John here, Delighted Acres Farm. And today we're gonna do some, bless you. That was a bear. Bear just sneezed, so. Let's start over. Take two. Hey, what's up everybody? John here, Delighted Acres Farm. And today I'm gonna do a little bit different video for you guys. It's been a while since I've made a cooking video, and so today I'm gonna make a vegetable beef / turkey soup. So it's usually I use a couple pounds of ground beef in my soup. Today we're gonna make it a little bit healthier, and we're gonna have a pound of ground beef, pound of ground turkey, and some vegetables and other stuff and some seasonings. And so I hope that it looks delicious for you guys. I hope that you enjoy the video. This is not a written down recipe. If you watch throughout the recipe or throughout the video, then you can write something down. But this is something that I just came up with a lot of years ago. In Oklahoma City, there used to be a restaurant that was one of my all-time favorites. There were, I believe there were 3 different locations, but the #1 location was on Northwest Expressway in Oklahoma City, and it was called Pioneer Pies. And you could go to Pioneer Pies. They had country cooking, home cooking, that kind of thing. But you could go get one of the main dishes, or just get soup and salad. And the salad was real simple. It came in an old, well, they weren't really old because they were printed for Pioneer Pies, but an old pie tin, and that's what the salad came in. And they were real simple with lettuce and some carrot and some other salady stuff. One of my favorite things that came on it was sunflower seed kernels. And so anyway, that's not part of this meal today, but you could get the salad and you could get soup. And they had 2 or 3 different soups that you could get. My favorite was the vegetable beef, and I liked it so much that I kind of broke it down, trying to figure out how they made it, what they put in it. And come to find out, I'm pretty good at tasting ingredients. So this is gonna be pretty close. Every time I make it, it's pretty close to what the original was, but it's always different at the same time, because like I said, there's no recipe. I just throw stuff together, I throw it in the pot, and I let it cook. So today, this video is gonna be me cooking soup. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it looks tasty, and I hope that y'all give it a try at some point. Let's get started. First, I'm gonna start with a big pot, because if I don't use a big one, then it's not big enough. And so if it's too big, that's fine, but I always put more in it than I think I'm going to, so I got to start with a big one. All right, so I said we're going to use ground beef, ground turkey. I'm going to cut up some cabbage, a little bit of celery, an onion, some baby carrots. Use a little bit of bone broth, a little bit of tomato sauce. I usually would have big cans, but this is all we got right now, so that'll have to do. A little bit of tomato sauce, some green beans, some corn, some diced tomatoes to make up for some of the tomato sauce, and sliced stewed tomatoes. So there you go. That is what I'm gonna put in to the, I forgot something. Okay, so I got what I forgot. I got what I forgot. I forgot garlic salt and my seasoned salt. So this is, I don't know if it's Lowry's or some other brand, but you get the idea. So Lowry's, there's other brands out there, McCormick's. It's all pretty much the same. So that type of seasoning that you put on like hamburgers and stuff like that, that's the seasoning, plus the garlic salt that I put in my soup. So there you go. Run back through those things. Run back the video if you want to see what all that stuff was. And there you go. I may try to write it down in the description. So, all right, let's get busy making some soup. Got my cutting board. Got my cutting knife. All right, so I'm gonna start. When I start my soup, the first thing I do is I cut up the onion so I can get that started. And so what I'm gonna do is that'll be the first thing I put in my pot. So I need a little bit of oil. So little bit of oil here. That should be perfect. All right, so I got my oil in the pot, and I'm gonna start the heat at about 4. Yeah, I don't want to fry. I found that if I start it too high, so it goes up to 7 is high. If I put it right about 4, it's okay. When I have it up to 5, for some reason, that's just a little too hot, and it pops and it splatters all over the place, even out of that pot. So I go on the side of caution. I don't turn the heat up too high, but I have it up high enough where it will saute up. Sometimes it'll brown up a little bit, the edges of the onion. So I'm gonna get started with the onion, and then I'm gonna put the meat in when the onions are done, and then I'll cut up the cabbage. I'll put the cabbage in after the meat's done, and the tomato sauce, the stewed tomatoes, the diced tomatoes, the green beans and the corn I'm gonna leave out for a little bit, but I'll put the seasoning in during that time. So anyway, like I said, let's make this soup. Now, I said I'm going to use garlic salt. Ideally, I would be using fresh garlic, but I don't like taking the time to mess with it sometimes. So, garlic salt, garlic powder, it'll all do in a pinch. So, and there's no rhyme or reason how big I cut the onion. It's more for flavor, and so I try to make sure I get it cut up good enough where it's not super chunky, but I want to make sure I'm not spending too much time on it, because it doesn't really matter. Like I said, it'll cook up enough for flavor, and then as it cooks, because it's the first thing I start with, it'll be cooking the whole time. And after it cooks for flavor, essentially it almost disintegrates. You can still see the onion in it, but after 20 minutes or so, you really can't even tell onions in there with everything else. And so, especially if I cut it smaller, but Kelly and I don't really care. Like I said, it'll cook down almost to nothing after a while. So y'all cut it as big or as small as you want to. Y'all are doing it. It's up to you. Now let's check the oil. Oh no, yep, it's thin. Can you see a shimmer when it pulls across the bottom of the pan? See that shimmer when it goes across the bottom of the pan? That's just perfect. That's what I want. So I got to, I'll grab my onions here and I'm gonna dump them into the pot. So onions right there in the pot. Yeah, that's hard to do one-handed, so hold on. Let's see if I can do this. Woo. Good enough. Good enough. So return that so I can do my cabbage, and then I'm going to check on the onions. Hear that? Sizzle, sizzle, pop, pop. Sizzle, sizzle, pop, pop. A little bit of steam. This is one of the best smells in the world. Is the smell of onions cooking, sauteing. It's one of my favorite smells anyway. I'll give it a good stir. I'm gonna let those cook down a little bit. Put the lid on there, because if you don't put the lid on there, the moisture that's in there, everything escapes. It also helps steam it a little bit, because we don't need them to get crispy. We're just cooking out some of the flavor. So, but the next thing is I'm going to cut open my meat. I like using two meats. Excuse me. Like whenever I make chili, whenever I make chili, a lot of times I like to use a pound of ground beef and a pound of breakfast sausage, and I mix those together when I brown them. Just adds to the flavor. And sometimes I have used 2 pounds of breakfast sausage, and that's really good. But it's almost a little too much for me, because it really does change kind of the flavor of the chili I'm going for. But a 1 pound roll of breakfast sausage and a pound of ground beef or ground turkey is real good mixed together whenever you're making chili. So just a little tidbit for you. But this isn't chili, this is soup. I don't know, you can see some ice, maybe some ice crystals still in there, but it's not frozen, so it's not going to be a problem. But I like to try to cut it up while it's in the package, so whenever I put it in the pot, it does not cause me a problem and have. Sometimes it's hard to chunk it up and get it really spread out good when it's in the pot. So I try to do that beforehand. Check my onions. Woo! Look at that. I almost went a little too long, didn't I? That right there, that is why I am careful about how hot I get my heat. So we're gonna leave that open for a second, and get my ground beef. Just dump it in there. And hi, Bear. Say hi, Bear. He's a really good dog, so. Yeah, he's a good dog. And so I'll put the turkey in here. Oh, sometimes I'm in a little too big of a hurry, so I gotta bring the paper out. Get on there. Get on there. So then I just do my best. Chop it up. I should have chopped the beef up too, but I didn't. So I'm gonna chop all this up. I'm gonna chop all that up, and I'll be right back with you guys. So I got the meat browning right now, and while that's going, I'm going to chop up the cabbage and get it ready. And while we were at the store the other night, I grabbed a small head of cabbage. Give me a second. So I grabbed a small head of cabbage the other night, and Kelly said, "Go ahead and get a big one." Or this was not one of the big ones, but it's about a medium size. And so, see, it's about that big. Not quite as big as my head. About half the size of my head. So, anyway. I picked up a small one. Kelly said get the medium size. So, I'm going to cut it in half so that maybe we can make some unstuffed cabbage rolls later this week or sometime soon. Because we like to cook with cabbage. It's just not something we always have, and so we have to think ahead. But since we're making soup, Kelly said get a bigger one so that we'll have some cabbage for later in the week, and that's what we're doing. So like I said, I'm going to use half of this, and I'm going to save the other half. I usually peel off at least the outer layer of leaves, because they're usually a little softer. So I'll get rid of those. That's good. I'm not too picky. Like I said, just like the onions, just like the onions, will soften up as it cooks. So we're gonna go ahead with what we got. Let's see. Sometimes it's like trying to cut open a watermelon. Of course, I was cutting down through the stem, but we're gonna cut that out. I'm gonna check on this meat real quick. Flip that over. All right. Go ahead and turn that up just a little bit because it needs it. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of this cabbage. Right here's the stem. I cut the stem out. Try not to cut myself. This is a little more difficult when I'm doing it on camera because I'm trying to be safe. So got the stem out. Throw that away. And I try to, I don't know, I try to cut it relatively small, but I want to be able to get it on my spoon whenever I'm eating it. So it has to be small enough for that. If I was eating something with a fork, if I was eating a cabbage with a fork, I would probably cut the cabbage a little bigger. Maybe. We'll see. But for this purpose, I usually cut it a little smaller. Like I said, so it fits on a spoon. Fits on a spoon. I'll cut your heart out with a spoon. What movie is that off of? I'll cut your heart out with a spoon. It's a movie quote. Who knows what movie that's from? Cabbage. Who likes cabbage? I like cabbage now. I didn't always. When I was young, I didn't like it. I didn't like coleslaw or anything like that, and definitely didn't want to have cabbage in anything. But as I got older, I got smarter. Figured there are ways to fix cabbage. There are ways to fix cabbage where it's tasty. Many of y'all may not know, but I was a missionary in Jamaica for a couple of years, and we had a cook that was part of the ministry there, and her name was Pinto. And she cooked with love. Everything she cooked was amazing. Somebody else could cook the exact same thing with the exact same ingredients and it would not be the same. How many of y'all know that love is an ingredient that makes food taste better? Anyway, whenever we would have mission teams come down, one night of the week for each team, she would take a cabbage and she would wedge out the cabbage. She would boil the cabbage, but then she would wedge it out, and I don't know, get a dozen or more wedges out of a cabbage, and then she would take those wedges, put them on a baking sheet, put a slice of cheese on them, and put them in the oven to melt that cheese. And so a part of our side dish was just a wedge of cabbage with melted cheese on it, and it was fantastic. Y'all, give that a try sometime. I think you would like it. All right, so here we have our cabbage. I think all these pieces are small enough. If not, that's all right. We have learned to deal with it, but I do pretty decent at getting them the right size because that's the size that I want them to be, and so I know what I want. So anyway, I gotta check the meat one more time here. Ouch, y'all. Steam is no joke. Be careful. So if you are ever making this, be careful. So some of this meat has not browned yet, and you can see there's moisture in there, and that is mostly just water. The turkey is very lean. I think the ground beef was 92.8 or something like that. So it's plenty lean enough. Most of this moisture, like I said, it's just water that came out of the turkey. So how many of y'all know that sometimes different meats have water added to them, especially poultry. Poultry tends to have a lot of water added to it. Chicken, turkey, stuff like that. So that does, and that's what that is. So I'm not going to drain it just because it needs moisture in there anyway. And if it was fatty, I would drain it, or at least sop it up with some paper towels. But that's not what that is. Anyway, there you go. So I'm getting ready. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put the not the cabbage. I'm going to put like the sauce and all that stuff in there, and then I will throw in the cabbage and let that cook in all of the liquids, and I'll be right back with you. So it doesn't do good to drop the can in with it whenever you're dumping it out. So if you do that, take the can out. So there we go. We got all the tomato products in there, and I'm gonna let that go for a while. Like I said, I want those to start cooking and get hot. I'm probably gonna mix up some beef stock. Let's see, bone broth. I'm gonna mix some of this up, and that's gonna go in there. And whenever that gets all hot, then I can put the cabbage in. I'll start cutting up some celery, so that'll be ready to go in. And then at some point I'll put the green beans and the corn in, but I don't want all of that to go in first, like with all the tomato stuff. I'll probably drain out the juice from these. I like corn, but for me, there's something about whenever you put in corn to something and you don't drain the juice, it like makes the whole thing taste like corn. And so as much as I like corn, I don't want everything to taste like it. I just want the kernels. So I got some hot water here and the bone broth. And so this is supposed to be 4 teaspoons to a cup of water, hot water. I've got 2 cups of water, so do 8. And I'm not going to do all the fancy calculations. I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned hard way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5 or so. Just to add a little extra flavor. Plus, I'll probably have to add more liquid maybe here in a little bit anyway. So maybe I will leave the juice in the green beans and the corn. I don't know. What do you think? Put your comment down there. Should I leave the juice in the corn and the green bean? What do you think I'm gonna do? Am I gonna leave it in or I'm gonna pour it out? So I got this all mixed up. And I'm gonna go ahead and pour it in the pot. Get that going. And then I'll go ahead, start getting my celery ready to go. Good stir there. Let that keep going. I'm gonna go ahead and put the cabbage in, and now I'm going to, after that, I'm gonna cut up the celery. So, I just want the cabbage to start cooking, and all the juices and everything are already hot enough that it's gonna start cooking, and it's about to boil. So, yeah, in no time the cabbage is gonna be cooked, and so I don't want it to take too long. The cut up celery, probably go ahead and throw in carrots because they're going to take a little bit to cook, longer than the celery probably. And anyway, get that cabbage in, and I'm going to do this other stuff. So usually I just cut off a big chunk off the big end, and on the small end I just go with the small part. It's just what I like to do. You can do whatever. If you ever make this, it's your soup. You can do it however you want to do it. Woo! There we go. Just like that. I only used 3 pieces of celery. I could have used a lot more, but Kelly's not a big fan because she's not a big fan of the celery, so I just don't put too much in. But there's something about celery that adds just a little bit of extra flavor. And it's healthy. There ain't nothing to it. Some people call it celery a 0-calorie food because you burn more calories eating it than there are in it. So I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not, but it sounds true. All right, so I'm gonna put the celery in. I'm gonna go ahead and put the carrots in, let it cook for a little while. Don't let me forget, I gotta put the seasoning in. Look, I don't even have the seasoning in it yet, and it already smells good. All right. So we'll let that cook. I do need to get the salt, the seasoned salt, and the garlic salt, and get it ready to go. As far as the green beans and the corn, if you said I'm gonna decide to leave the liquid in, you're right. I'm not gonna drain it. I'm gonna throw everything in there because the seasonings, they'll be enough to season that corn flavor. So yeah, so I'm gonna, like I said, get seasonings ready to go, get the corn and the green beans ready to go, and almost everything's in there. We just have to let it cook. So let me take care of this stuff real quick, and we'll show you the progress. I don't know exactly how much garlic salt I want to use. You gotta be careful with it because garlic can be overpowering. It doesn't smell too bad, too strong. So what I've got is basically it's just a soup spoon. I don't need a teaspoon. I need something a little bigger, but I don't really need a tablespoon's worth. So I got a couple of soup spoons of the garlic salt, but the seasoned salt, I know I need at least 3 scoops. And so you may think, oh, that's a bunch. Yeah, well, that's 2 pounds. That's actually a little more than 2 pounds of meat. The liquid and all the stuff that's in there, that is really not a whole lot of seasoning for everything that is in there. So I'm gonna put those lids back on, leave them out. But when I put the seasoning in, I'll use this spoon to stir it in. You gotta be careful with seasoning when stuff's already cooking, because if you pour it in and just dump it and then it winds up not mixing well and getting on the bottom of the pot, it really causes a problem. I have burned and wasted an entire pot of soup on more than one occasion, and chili on more than one occasion, because that got down there and it burnt and the whole thing was ruined. So when you're putting seasoning in as it's cooking, sprinkle it out real good. Make sure I'm gonna stir it in with this spoon so that I know that it gets in there, and then it will then disperse throughout as I stir it more later. So let me get this, I guess I need that spoon. I just said I was gonna use it. So, all right, let me set you up. Right there. Watch the steam because it's hot. Give it a stir so it doesn't stick. Let it keep going. Shoot, that looks good. All right, so before I put the seasoning in, y'all take a look at that. I like the colors green, red, orange, white, things in between. All right. So I'll just easily throw that in. And then give it a good stir. And the reason I use this spoon is because if I were to use see, I'm not even using a spoon. I'm using a flipper or a spatula thing. If I were to use that, it would wind up coating the side of it, and that's a pain in the butt. Right now, I'm going to get the corn and the green beans. I'm going to open those up, pour them in, and get all that going. Put the lid on. First, I'll give it a really good stir and put the lid on and let it cook for a while. Turn the heat down a little bit so it simmers more than boils, and just let everything continue to cook. Get those flavors into the carrots, into the cabbage, mixed into the meat, celery, all that stuff. Soup and chili, stuff like that, it's always good the first day, but it's always better the second and the third day as it sits in that pot and it soaks everything up. I wish you could get that flavor, that soaked up flavor from the initial cooking, but for me, it never happens that way. It's always the next day or the day after that it's just so good, and it's almost like an addiction at that point. So, but then it's all gone, and then you have to make some more. It's all right. I can make more. And so, got the corn, got the green beans, all mixed in. So now I'm just waiting for it to. I'm waiting for it to come back up to the boil, and then I will turn down the heat a little bit. But I told y'all I'm using a bigger pot than I first thought. Like, I always try to use a bigger pot than I initially think I need. So here are two pots. This is the one I'm cooking in. This is the one I intended at first. That's the one I had intended at first to use. But I don't know if you can see it, but look at the level of the soup, and look how tall that pot is. If I would have used the smaller pot, I would be making a mess every time I stirred it because it would try to come over the top. So over the years of making these soups, making chili and all those things, I have come to have a pretty good idea of how big I need to have my pot. So anyway, one last look. That's enough. Probably just saw some steam, but that's okay. Y'all, I'm gonna let that simmer and cook for a while. Kelly is out of town. She's, well, not out of town. She went shopping this afternoon, and she'll be home sometime later. We'll have soup ready to go whenever she gets here, and y'all, I'm looking forward to it. And so I'm pretty excited. I'm gonna get everything cleaned up, put the stuff in the fridge, and maybe clean up some dishes that we've got, and I will show you the finished product here in just a little bit. So for you guys, it's gonna be just a short amount of time. But for me, it might be half hour, 45 minutes before I come back to you guys, but you will not know that. So here you go. In 3, 2, 1. All right, folks, so the soup's done. It's actually been done for a little bit, but I've been waiting for Kelly to get home from town. She's still gonna be a little bit, but I'm hungry, so I'm gonna get some soup, and I'm gonna have some dinner. Well, but I want to show you the soup real quick. I actually turned off the heat a little bit ago, and so it's been sitting a little bit, but there you go, y'all. Look at that. Look how good that looks. You can see all the stuff: tomatoes, cabbage, green bean, corn, the meat. Oh man, that looks so good. And oh, maybe you couldn't. Maybe it's too much steam for you, but whatever. Let me tell you, even though it's on camera here, you can't smell it. I wish we had smell-o-vision, because y'all would be salivating right now. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna scoop me up a little bit here, and don't mind the dirty bowl. I had to test it out earlier while it was cooking to make sure I didn't have too much or not enough seasoning in it. So there you go. Bring it over here. Check that out. And that's gonna be tasty. It's gonna be my dinner. I'm gonna get some saltine crackers, and I'm gonna enjoy it. So you guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it made you hungry. And I hope you give it a try. Homemade vegetable beef soup, vegetable beef and turkey, but homemade soup, guys. Give it a try. It's not hard. Throw stuff together. It doesn't have to be fancy. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be a recipe. Just throw some stuff together. Throw in some seasoning and enjoy it. So you guys, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like it, please hit like. Ring the notification bell so you know when new stuff comes out. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Y'all have a great rest of your day, whatever day it is that you are watching this. I'll see you on the next video.